We have some history in the National Hockey League. We also have a Panther that has signed a short-term deal, and we also discuss a possible trade from another team and how that affects the Panthers. We're going to discuss that today on the Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome to this Wednesday, July 6th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from PantherParkway.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at MonoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to also subscribe to Locked On Fantasy Hockey and Locked On NHL, where they'll be covering all the off-season activities around the National Hockey League. So, Panther fans, hockey fans all over, I hope that you had a great holiday weekend, however you celebrated, whether it was spending time at the beach, whether it was being at work, whether it was being around your loved ones. I hope that all of you had a great holiday weekend. It was great for me to get a few days off in order to recharge the batteries ahead of what this week is, the NHL entry draft. But we have a few things to discuss on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, and we're talking about history that has been made in the NHL, and we're going to discuss that first in this part of the show. And let me bring in my guest, Jacob Winans, here on the show on this Winans Wednesday edition on the show to discuss the hiring of the first Black GM in NHL history with Jacob Winans. First of all, Jacob, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling really good. The holiday weekend was nice to have a little break, and the roller coaster of the off season is just getting going. So I'm excited for that.
Isn't it strange how, like, as someone who watches multiple sports, that multiple changes happen so quickly when the Stanley Cup final ends? I mean, the NBA, it happens with the NBA as well, with all these moves happening so rapidly. And then you have the draft and free agency come out so, like, it could sometimes sneak up on you before you know it. With football, it's a few months until the draft and free agency for them. But with hockey and basketball, it just comes at you so quickly. And then we kind of see late in the process of coaching hires. We discussed on Friday Bob Boughner being fired from the San Jose Sharks, a Florida Panthers connection. We discussed a little bit of that, which told me at the time that there was a GM in place. And then, lo and behold, it is announced that Mike Grier, who's played for 4 different teams, the Oilers, Capitals, Sabres, and Sharks, and has moved up in the ranks of becoming a coach and part of the front office as a scout with the Chicago Blackhawks, assistant coach with the Devils, and then hockey operations advisor with the New York Rangers. He was just introduced today by the San Jose Sharks. He is the first Black general manager in the National Hockey League ever. And this is a great milestone. And because this is a podcast that comes out in the South Florida region, at least the majority of the fan base, you hear Mike Grier's name. Why does that sound so familiar? He is the brother of Miami Dolphins GM Chris Grier, and it's just a great connection of everything related to, like, South Florida. And there's more to it, but I want to give you the floor for a little bit on your thoughts of Mike Grier becoming the first Black GM in NHL history.
Honestly, I was ecstatic to see that news. Myself and you as well, we're both minorities, and representation is everything, especially in a sport like hockey. It's a hockey culture is kind of the term used, and there's an ongoing effort, top to bottom, to try to make it a more diverse sport. And having someone leading a franchise, and a franchise that has been historically competitive in San Jose, taking over a legit franchise and having that kind of representation goes a really long way. I think it's fantastic that he's the brother of Chris Grier. I think the fact that having two brothers reach this kind of level in professional sports, both GMing pro sports franchises, and then in two wildly different sports, I think it's unheard of. It's really cool, and it's not even just in hockey, but sports in general. It's an effort to get to have Black and minority executives in front office positions, not just coaching staffs, but to get them in the front office. And I think having it in hockey is it goes a really long way. So as a half Black person myself, I'm really proud that he's gotten this opportunity, and it really does open doors. So I really hope he's successful there in San Jose. It's a really awesome moment.
Mm-hmm. And he has a difficult job on his hands with the contracts of Brett Burns, Erik Karlsson, Logan Couture. They just signed Thomas Hertl to an 8-year extension, which a lot of people, I mean, that wasn't Mike Grier's signing, but a lot of the question went into that signing of when the San Jose Sharks are back to being at a competitive level, what will that contract of Thomas Hertl look like by the time the end of the contract is there for him? And he's got a lot to clean up. They said that unlike the Dolphins, where the Dolphins went full rebuild, it doesn't look like the San Jose Sharks are going to completely go in that direction due to still having a lot of veterans on their team. And we talked about this many weeks ago, where the San Jose Sharks were that one team knocking on the door over and over and over and over again, just not getting the cup. And now they're at the tail end of they passed the climax of what their peak was during their years of contending. But hey, let's also talk about Mike Grier's father, Bobby Grier, who was an executive with the New England Patriots and the Houston Texans. Well, also Bobby Grier is currently a consultant with the Miami Dolphins, and he's been there since 2017. So he's still in the NFL even now, working under his son, just not in making like personnel decisions too. So it's pretty cool. And now having that with multiple with the same family, in multiple sports, and Mike Grier playing in the NHL as well, it's just cool. And also South Florida connections as well. We related it with the football side of things with the Grier, the father and the son and the brother, but also who he was competing against to get this job. We talk about Ray Whitney, who was with the Panthers in the late 90s to 2001. Also Scott Mellenby, former captain of the Panthers as well, originator of what was the rat trick. Well, he didn't call it the rat trick. That was Beezer who said it, but he was the guy who killed the rat. But the South Florida connections with Mike Grier hiring, Bob Bugner firing, and then relating it all to South Florida, it's just something that's just like
yeah, it's really funny how that works out sometimes in sports. It seems like every hiring, every signing, every draft pick, you can kind of like draw a line connecting it to someone or somewhere else in the sports world, but it seems like everything just leads back to South Florida with this one, which I think is really funny. But if anything, it gives us a Western Conference team to cheer for. The San Jose Sharks can be Florida Panthers West. If anyone wants to stay up till 10:30 Eastern every day and support the Sharks, it's more power to you. But
I don't know about that.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a really cool moment for definitely the Grier family, but just for representation, minorities in the sport, I couldn't be happier. I'm really happy to see this happen.
You talk about two teams who are sea creatures, two franchises that have teal in their colors. And fun fact about if anyone listening has listened to my multiple crossovers with Locked On Sharks, JD Young, one of the co-hosts, actually now the main host, Kyle Demetrius is no longer there. He's also a Miami Dolphins fan as well, JD Young. So another reason to support Locked On Sharks. And I also listened to Locked On Sharks today to see what JD had to say. So a little plug for my colleague out west covering the San Jose Sharks. He also works for San Jose Hockey now as well. So more credibility on his part of covering the Sharks. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to talk about a signing of a Panthers prospect ahead of this upcoming offseason. So first, we're going to tell you all about BetOnline. And BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite sports, events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today. Use a mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And the NHL draft is right around the corner, and our team of local hosts and draft experts are breaking down with insights and analysis for every first round pick. Subscribe to Locked On NHL on YouTube for all the latest breakdowns on the NHL draft and more. And just programming note for everybody listening is that highly doubt that we're going to do a Thursday night recording the night of the draft. Just really going to be taking in everything. Chris Grier's probably, Bill Zito is probably going to be working the phones on draft night, but chances are the Florida Panthers are going to stay pat. And unless there's a draft day trade, just like Sam Reinhart last year, then we'll do a late Thursday night going into Friday night episode. But just a programming note for everybody out there. But Jacob, ahead of the Florida Panthers, the draft and free agency, we were discussing a few weeks ago of who are the Panthers likely going to qualify an offer to, and the deadline to qualify an offer is July 11th. So right now, as when this recording drops, it will be 5 days until the day that all the teams in the NHL could qualify whether they say they're going to. Excuse me, and looks like that another signing that is out of the way, and that we can move on, and that the Florida Panthers can move on to signing the bigger fish in when it comes to free agency. They agreed with Aleksi Heponiemi to a 1-year, 2-way contract worth $750,000 at the NHL level, $100,000 at the AHL level. So my opinion on this is that I like the 2-way part of it, because you're not going to lose Aleksi Heponiemi on waivers. He's been in the system for quite a little bit, so it's kind of put up or shut up time for Aleksi Heponiemi. But I also see it in this way: with Anthony Duclair being hurt right now, I do believe there is a chance for him to be on the opening night roster, not necessarily in the lineup, maybe a healthy scratch, and seeing him practice with the team and everything. But I do believe this gives him an opportunity to become at least part of the opening night roster. And then when someone like Duclair is ready to come back, they send him back down without going through waivers. And even though Heponiemi is a center, we've seen at times that he could be put on the wing position in the very few appearances that we've seen.
Yeah, Heponiemi, he was once one of our very highly touted, most elite prospects. He was absolutely ridiculous in the WHL. Went over to Finland and tore up their top men's league there. His game is all about offense, and he has struggled a little bit coming back from Finland, playing on the smaller ice at the AHL level. He's a guy who I think his game is better suited for the NHL than the AHL. That can sound kind of weird to a lot of people, because the AHL obviously is a tier below the NHL, but I feel like his game is better suited for the NHL just because the AHL has so many guys who are completely defensive minded. They don't have an NHL future outside of being like a third or fourth line role playing grinder type. So you don't see as much like high octane offense at the AHL level. It's just not as common. Aleksi Heponiemi is an purely offensive guy. And that's not to say he can't play defense, but he's small in stature. He's very small. Like you said, exactly. Right, and weighs probably about 150, maybe 160. Really.
Excuse me, 154. Excuse me.
Yeah, he's definitely on the smaller side. So his game is all about skill and offense. At the NHL level, he's never had an opportunity in the top 6. I think he may get that shot coming out of training camp. If he has a good camp, he may get a shot playing in the top six, maybe third line. But whatever it is, he may get a shot to play with some more offensive guys. So I do like the signing. I think there's still a good amount of untapped potential there. And I think as he gets stronger physically, as he gets more adapted to the professional game here in North America, I think there is some legitimate upside. He's got to find it. He's running out of time a little bit, but I think this season may be his best chance to crack the NHL roster so far. So I'm excited about the signing, and I want to see if they can kind of find some of that offense that he showed early in his development.
Yeah, and we remember the flash quickly in his very first NHL game. Duclair has a saucer pass to Heponiemi, and then he scores a game winner on the road in Detroit very early on in the season in 2021. And that was his one and only goal on the NHL level. But we also have to consider the fact that Hepo kind of not necessarily lost a year of development, but maybe was a little behind based on the COVID shortened season with the Charlotte Checkers opting out of the season in 2021. And he only appeared in 6 games at the AHL level with Syracuse that year. And he was on the taxi squad for the Panthers. Remember, this was when COVID was still new and that we were still finding ways as this being part of our new normal, at least at that time. So that kind of those affects the younger NHL players more. I mean, every team goes through. I'm not saying that the Panthers are a special case, but that also kind of might be a reason why Hepo is not at the place that Panther fans might want him to be. But that is a factor, and of course, there's nothing like game reps and being on the taxi squad and being hurt as well. That might have held him back a little bit, but hey, now he's at least under contract at least for one more, and hey, it's a prove it deal.
Yeah, definitely. He's going to get his chance. But yeah, like you said, at this stage of development, the main thing, and we talked about this with the Matt Kiersted signing, the main thing is just to be playing. Right now, it really doesn't matter where. He just needs to be on the ice playing, earning experience. So if that's at the NHL level, fantastic. But if he's going to be able to play 18, 19, 20 minutes a night as a top line forward for Charlotte, by all means, do that. He gets the reps, he gets top power play time, and I think he learns a lot that way. But that's a very good point you made on the COVID shortened season. We have a lot of guys who are probably a year behind in their development due to that. Heponiemi, you think about Denisenko, you think about Sarah Noel, even a lot of these guys they missed out on an AHL season, or the majority of one that they would have used to develop their game. So we hope that they'll catch up, and they've got every opportunity to do so. And I'm really excited to see Hepo play this year. I think he's a guy who's primed to make a jump. He's going to make a leap, and I really think it's going to come now.
And let's also consider the last 2 seasons they've been playing with another team in their farm system as well. I mentioned Syracuse earlier in this segment, and then Seattle this year. So a lot of Palm Springs, California, that's where Seattle's new affiliate is going to be. Mm-hmm. So they won't have. Now there'll be more minutes available for Aleksi Heponiemi as well. And he had a better season this year in Charlotte as far as point production goes. 39 points in 56 games. I know once again plus minus at even. So okay, we can't really judge based on just that. But for Hepo, it's a chance to get some minutes. And I like that you brought back the Matt Kiersted contract. The 2-way won't be, both of them will be on 2 ways this year, so it's 2 in the same year, easily movable. And let me check Cap Friendly one more time to see where so he'll actually be an RFA again next season. Right. So they'll have an opportunity to qualify another offer. So team control for Aleksi Heponiemi, it's there for the Panthers, and then he could earn himself maybe he can even earn himself a 3-year deal at that point, and it's like somewhere between like $1 to $2 million if the fact that it's RFA status as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, the opportunity is going to be there. But the main thing that I really like that you brought up is the fact that the past 2 seasons they have shared their AHL affiliate. Next season, it'll just be Panther prospects, Panther control, Panther contracts. That is a really good environment for them to develop in. The Panthers are able to prioritize the development of their own prospects, their own talent. The top line minutes are not going to be shared with Seattle's prospects anymore. Think about Seattle. A lot of guys like Scott Wilson, Cole Lind. If you watched any of their games, a lot of these guys ate up a lot of those top 6 minutes. So next season it's going to be Panther players doing that, and I think Hepo is a guy who's going to benefit from that greatly if he does end up in Charlotte. So I'm excited to see what it's going to look like. And for Heponiemi specifically, he's been in the AHL with the Panthers for quite some time. He spent 3 AHL seasons as a Panther contract. All 3 were different teams. His first year was Springfield Thunderbirds, second year Syracuse Crunch, third year Charlotte Checkers. So he's been on the move a lot, not really in the same system, and it's tough to develop that way. So some continuity here will go a long way for him.
Absolutely. I like good word for that, continuity for Aleksi Heponiemi. And hey, more comfort in the system could go a long way. In the next segment, we're going to discuss a trade that happened this weekend in the NHL and how that relates to the Panthers and our confidence level that a trade will happen right before free agency. We're going to discuss that more in the next segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Third and final segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast on this Winans Wednesday edition of the show. And Jacob, we had a trade over the weekend between the Nashville Predators and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So the Nashville Predators decided to trade for Tampa Bay Lightning defenseman Ryan McDonagh, who is a big presence on their team. They traded for prospect Grant Mishmash and Philippe Myers, whose cap hit for that is a $2.5 million. So as far as cap space, the Tampa Bay Lightning gained $4.2 million. And there was rumors saying about how the Tampa Bay Lightning could buy out the contract of Philippe Myers, but it looks like that they're gonna try to develop him more as in their third pairing defense. Of course, if Jan Ruda resigns, then it could be possible Chernak and Ruda second pairing, depending on if Ruda gets resigned. But the point of that trade and talking about this as far as trades go is we've been discussing for weeks now about something that kind of seems inevitable for the Panthers as far as a move they're going to make to clear cap space. And that is talking about Patric Hornqvist. And going into this offseason, I went from 85% sure Patric Hornqvist was going to get traded. As far as like 3 or 4 days ago, it was getting up to 90. Now I'm about over a 95% confident that it's a trade that's going to happen. And now with the state of the NHL with the flat cap, which is a reality for what's going on. I mean, we saw some trades last season with going back to Tampa Bay Lightning. They traded Tyler Johnson for the contract of Brent Seabrook and have his contract, the rest of it on LTIR. We just saw a few weeks ago how even though Vegas is in a cap crunch, that they traded for the contract of Shea Weber and putting the rest of his contract on LTIR in exchange of getting Dadonov. Vegas's trade for Marc-Andre Fleury was a mid-level prospect for the Chicago Blackhawks at $7 million. And then Chicago was able to benefit that trade into Minnesota, getting a second-round pick out of that. And, of course, we saw the Panthers trade Anton Stroman for a future second, which is 2024. we see that the cap hit for the Panthers at the time was not something that would fit the Panthers this year if we're looking back at the Strawman trade. But now, after seeing that Ryan McDonagh trade, I don't think that the Panthers are going to have to beg other teams by taking the cap hit and having to sacrifice another like 1, 2, or first to third round pick in that ballpark. I don't think that it's going to require that this time around.
Yeah, so a couple of things on this. One, how happy are we that McDonagh's out of Tampa? I mean, honestly.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, that's number one. Number two, I think Mishmash is my favorite last name in the sport now. That's an interesting one. But in all seriousness, I think the trade market is going to be beneficial to the Panthers this time around. We don't exactly have a lot of picks to give away anymore. We sort of mortgaged a lot of those for assets at this deadline, and going back to Sam Bennett and Sam Reinhart. More than worth it. I just want to throw that out there. I don't want to start any more controversy with Sam Bennett and the seconds, but I think the trade market's going to benefit us a little bit more this time around. The McDonagh trade gives you an idea of what you can get for a veteran who's still producing. And keep in mind, his contract had term, a lot of it. Patric Hornqvist is exactly. Hornqvist is an expiring deal, so it's not like someone's making a long-term crippling move for their cap. It's just a one-year thing. And a report came out that Seattle was very interested in Hornqvist. I could see that making a lot of sense. That's a team that's trying to develop an identity. They're a team full of young players. They're not expecting to compete right now, but they're trying to establish a culture. They're trying to show their young players and build their franchise from the ground up, literally. So a guy like Hornqvist, you bring him in, he's exactly what you're looking for in a veteran presence who's been there, done that, won everything you can win. He's a guy who can help set your culture. So if that's what it ends up being, then happy for Hornqvist to go make his mark on another franchise, and the cap space is direly needed right now in South Florida. So, but no, I really don't think we're going to have to give up a ton to get rid of him. I think if anything, it maybe just be a pick swap in addition to Hornqvist being sent to Seattle. It's something to think about. But another thing with Hornqvist, as far as this trade consideration goes, he's not a negative asset. He's a guy who still produces, still performed well in the playoffs. He still puts up points. So it's I don't think we're going to be having to put a hard sell and give something up to move his contract. I just don't see it.
And the reality is we're trading the cap hit. We're not we hate that we have to trade the person and the locker room presence. But just the cap hit just doesn't fit to what the Panthers are doing in this stage of their contention. And listen, Ron Francis got a lot of criticism gone his way about how he handled the expansion draft. But now seeing all the picks that the Seattle Kraken have and $22 million cap space, they have 1 first-round pick in this year's draft, 4 2s, a 3, 3 4s, 5, 6, and 7. And then next year, it's 3 more second-round picks, 2 more third-round picks, 3 more fourth-round picks. And then they have 2 6s in 2023, 2 3s in 2024, and 2 7s. So a lot of high draft capital in what Seattle is doing. So chances are they could get a prospect back from Seattle that's even something like a mid-tier, because they even got some mid-tier prospects in the Claude Giroux trade even. And listen, we talk about how Breezeball has been able to bring to replenish some of the farm that he's got in the McDonagh trade, but there's also a chance that it could very well happen for the Panthers as well. And seeing the embarrassment of riches as far as assets that the Kraken have, it's like they're the Boston Celtics of the NHL right now with all the assets, and they've used it to their advantage. Now it's looking like in the NBA that the Utah Jazz are going to be that. But look, it seems that way, that the Seattle Kraken are going to use their assets, and maybe the Panthers could even, I don't know if they get back a pick anywhere between 1 to 3. But even if you get one of those rounds, cartwheels. That's what I'd be doing.
Yeah, when we started the Hornqvist discussion over pretty much as soon as the season ended, my dream scenario was someone taking him in a trade, buying him out, and then we sign him back at league minimum. I don't see that happening anymore. I really do think Seattle, if that's the team, they have the picks to spend on him, and they're going to do that to invest in their development of their team. And Hornqvist is a guy who can help that. So, given the amount of picks they have, they're kind of the anti-Vegas Knights, right? They're building from the ground up with picks and prospects instead of going straight for the gold right away and trying to put together a contender in year 1 or 2. So I do think we can get a prospect back, and development is everything. If you get a pick, if you get a prospect, whatever it may be, no matter where they were drafted, what tier they are as a prospect, how they're ranked, development is everything. If you get someone you like, they have something you can work with, develop. You brought up Tampa. I want to throw one more thing out there about the prospects in the trade. I believe it was Ben Bishop who was traded to LA, and Eric Chernak was a throw-in prospect, not seen as a highly touted guy, kind of literally just a spare part in that trade. Tampa developed him into a huge contributor, and he was not seen as a focal point in that trade at all. So it's just something to think about.
That's awesome. And there's also other ways to see about prospects as well. And it's also about how general managers see them as well. And today I was listening to The Athletic, and draft analyst Sam Costantino spoke about how sometimes general managers don't even care about what's going on in the minors, because they're just so focused on, especially the contenders, of what they could do now. And it's crazy because when you talk about like how Bill Zito has gone for it, like trading for an Owen Tippett, trading away Ty Smilanich as well in the Ben Sherratt trade as well. So and then we talk about the move just last year about Emil Hyman getting moved to Calgary, and then using that as a trade piece to get Tyler Toffoli. That second round pick that they traded to Calgary just last season, that was used to get Cal Yarncrook from the Seattle Kraken. So now that pick that was originally traded to Calgary now belongs to the Seattle Kraken now. So listen, the Florida Panthers could very well get their pick back. They very well could. It could very well be that they get that original spot. Who knows? But Jacob, any final words before we sign off? The schedule, actually, one more thing. The schedule actually comes out tomorrow. So, who's your ideal opening night opponent?
Ideal opening night opponent. I feel like this has played out so many times. Tampa is always a really fun opening night. We've done that a handful of times. But my ideal opening night opponent, I would love to see us play. This is a tough one. I'm gonna go Tampa, Carolina, or even Colorado.
I think opening night, when the banner's raised, as far as the national broadcast, I think it's going to be Colorado Vegas to start off the season. I think or maybe Colorado St. Louis even. That would be an awesome storyline. And then of course that would be the Western game. And I think we could very well see Lightning Rangers opening night as far as like TNT broadcast or ESPN. But as far as the Panthers, I think that my ideal opening night would be against the Boston Bruins, division rival.
I like that.
Well. They're going through a transition as well, and of course they do the Florida swing. So I guess when the Rangers visit Tampa on maybe a Tuesday, October 11th, which is a Tuesday, they'll come to Florida in that same trip, and then Boston will start in Florida and then make their way to Tampa. That's my go ahead.
I think I want to change my entire answer.
Okay, go for it.
Something just came to mind when you said division rival. My ideal opening night opponent is Toronto in Sunrise.
Okay.
That would be incredible. I love when they visit, but I do like your Boston idea because they're very injured to start this season. Let's get those games against them out of the way while they're hurt.
That's true.
That's my strategy.
And that'll be the night that the Florida Panthers will raise the President's Trophy banner for the first time ever. So that's gonna, even though it ended in disappointment, it's gonna be something to look back on, regardless of the disappointment. We could still really look at that season. It's hard now still, but we can look up years to come and just say and just remember how much of a fun ride that was. But Jacob, I want to thank you for joining me on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody where they can find you online.
Yeah, you can find me online at Jacob Winans 8 on Twitter, and you can find my work at PantherParkway.com.
Thank you, and see you next Wednesday.
Yes, sir. We'll be here.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to Locked On Fantasy Hockey and Locked On NHL, where they'll be covering all the off-season activities around the National Hockey League. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.